Leukemia. Definitely the easier cancer. Any blood, can I use the word disorder? Any blood condition is so much easier to remedy than lymph issues. The lymph is a much thicker, much more difficult issue to deal with. The blood is so much more easier to clean up and deal with. I have that's for sure. Everything is curable, and I'm not going to use the word diseases. That makes me want to throw up. Wrong idea. Any damage occurred by the cells, by the acids of the body, can be rebuilt. That's kind of pretty good. I like that. So just remember that. Any damage to cells that have occurred from the acids of the body can be rebuilt. You know, leukemia is probably one of your easiest cancers to get rid of. And I'm going to say it not as a disease, so medical doctors won't have a fit. Whenever you have cells breaking down in the blood, can we call leukemia that? You want to look at your bone marrow, and of course that's going to be a problem with the lymph system again. Most leukemias are actually caused by the lymph system indirectly, and we're looking at spleen. We want to rebuild the spleen. When you start seeing platelets, red blood cells drop, even your white blood cells, you're going to be looking at spleen or the bone marrow. There are Chinese formulas for the bone marrow. My Ultimate Immune is for the bone marrow. I do have a spleen formula. If you can find a spleen formula out there, use it, you know, for those that think I'm pushing my formulas. I would also clean the liver up. I have a blood formula, and someone out there might have a blood formula. I made that blood formula for leukemias, for energizing and cleaning up the blood, but you want to go to the liver. But now wait a minute. What would be wrong with the liver, the spleen, and the bone marrow if they're starting to have problems? What could possibly cause this? Well, you're going back to your lymphatic system again. You're going back to the lymph system, which you're going back to the kidneys and adrenals. There you find your iron or your hemoglobin. Here you find a lot of things in the adrenals. Now, there are leukemias from chemicals. I remember 3 firemen in town got into a chemical fire, and all 3 got leukemia. And one had died. One was a real good friend of mine. I'd known him from the hospital because they come in the ER all the time. And then the other one, I didn't know much of him, but I knew he was pretty bad. Well, the one that was my friend was real bad. He was in a wheelchair and real bad. So I got a hold of him and I said, "Get your butt in here." So I got him up. I've got him walking. He got his energy coming back. His blood work was looking great. His oncologist was so mad that he put so much fear in his wife that his wife made him stop coming to see me, and the last thing we heard was that he passed away. I hope his wife is happy. You know, I hope his wife's happy. But anyway, that's a sad case. But leukemia, real easy. And I showed you this little girl the other day with leukemia. Childhood leukemia, a very easy leukemia for people to deal with. But then they gave her extreme chemo. Now, I don't know what age they gave her chemo, somewhere around 8 probably. Gave her heavy-duty amounts of chemo. Now, I just, you know, I won't go there, but that's just so bad. So she died, of course, but in a very bad way. And I have a picture of her mother and her friend there with her, and her mother's trying to smile and be happy, and so the girl will be happy. And my heart just, that kills me. That just kills me when we can save these kids. Leukemia, get on a raw diet and lots of fruits, berries, and melons. Fruits and berries and melons are the best for the blood there is. Fruits and berries in particular revitalize the blood. If you want greens, okay, then get your alfalfas and your barleys and your wheatgrasses if you want. Your spinaches, okay. Get beets, clean the liver, heavy beet juice, a lot of parsley, a lot of cilantro. Yeah, you could do some greens and pump that blood as well. Liquid chlorophyll, can't beat it. But also the flavonoid-rich fruits and berries, tons of blueberries, blackberries, tons of dark grapes, and you'll be okay. Clean that blood up, go after your bone marrow. I don't know what your blood work looks like here, but too much chemotherapy causes leukemia. You know, I've seen a lot of chemo just literally tear down the spleen. Well, bye-bye platelets, red blood cells, you know. And then, of course, it's going to tear down the bone marrow, too. Chemo's going to tear down all the body. There's nothing rebuilding about it. Wouldn't you think in today's world the idea would be rebuilding, regeneration, instead of adding to deterioration? Doesn't make sense, does it? Listen to this. Hi, Dr. Morse. A person was diagnosed with leukemia and was told that the DNA of the cells are damaged. Can diet and herbal protocol correct his blueprint of his cells back to a healthy state, or are these cells going to be permanently damaged? Well, if they're damaged enough, that's what macrophages are for. That's exactly what your immune system is for. It's actually what virals are for. And antigens. That's what these are for. These are signals to immune cells that these cells that are damaged. That's why I talked to you the other day about virals and how you can have a high viral load, like a high HIV viral load, and not have AIDS, or a high Hep C viral load and not really have hepatitis. This high viral loads. It's when cells become damaged by these acids that's when you start seeing the occlusions, and you start seeing the adhesions, and then you start seeing the immune response to that, which is a natural nature response. And so they'll break down these cells. Yes, you can rebuild cells' DNA, and yes, you can. The doctors are telling him that there is nothing that can be done. Well, again, medical doctors, because medical doctors can't cure anything. That's not their job, that's not their modality, and man has to just wake up to that medical doctors aren't in the field to cure. They might use those words that they're looking for these things, but that's just hype, because they know they can't cure, treating symptoms. And so leukemia is very curable. I'd rather have a leukemia than a lymphoma, although a lot of leukemias are lymphomic induced. You get after this guy and get his, not leukemia, but let him clean up his blood, strengthen his blood cells, get his kidneys, get his spleen cleaned out, clean the liver out, build the bone marrow up. But first you got to detoxify, and we have certain formulas that'll increase the bone marrow function. Does he have high white blood cells or low? Things like that matter in leukemia. In leukemia, if you have high white blood cells, good. If you have too low, not so good. That's your bone marrow. And bone marrow produces your white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets. Spleen is another organ where all this is kind of revamped. And it's where I talked to you before, where the blood cleans itself into the lymph system. Let me see. Ask a YouTube question. Hello. I lost my spleen because of a car accident. That's common out there. When I was 13, oh, that's sad. Now I'm 26, 13 years later. I would just like to know, what are the side effects of living without this major organ in your body? My doctor said it is no big deal. No big deal. And I will only affect my immune system. Well, if you consider leukemia as an immune system problem, you know what I'm saying? Well, the spleen is how the blood cleans itself into the lymph system. It's how it refurbishes its red blood cells. It's also the distributor of platelets and white blood cells. So it is direct communication with the bone marrow. So it is a big deal. So I'd say this. I'd say watch your blood work for platelets and white blood cells. Also keep a look at the reds. Get your kidneys filtering and cleaned up, and the kidneys can play a vital role in cleaning the blood. Keep your liver healthy as well, because that can, other tissues might take up some response from that. And keep yourself on a fairly good raw food diet. If you have to have some cooked, at least make it vegetables. And keep your ingestion healthy, your body clean and pure, and you'll do well. You'll do well. But you must get your lymph filtering, because in a way, they classify the spleen as a blood and lymphatic organ. So you see the essentialness of keeping the lymph system intact and healthy, and that's your immune system. So that's the problem. It can run you into leukemias and things like this. Now imagine, you've got leukemia, all right? You've got blood cells that have been damaged, and you're taking chemo right into the blood? How? I mean, I'll have to tell you, that's the top of stupid. Top of stupid. How many people get leukemia from chemo? Thousands. I just showed you a little baby the other day, 10-year-old young girl died from that. Look at her, bloated, skin burned off. But we might save one or two. Oh. Leukemia is easy to cure. You want to go after the bone marrow. There are some good Chinese herbs for bone marrow that we have here. Clean the spleen out. Get your platelets up, your red blood cells, white blood cells. You can work on some thymus, but you can do some thymus thumping if you want. We do have glandulars for the thymus gland. A lot of physicians don't check your NK cells. That's natural killer cells, but you might want to look at that if you're fighting leukemia. But a lot of people, like I have a little 10-year-old here that died here the other day. I only had her a week. And she was bloated and all stripped and red and chewed up from chemo. They gave her aggressive chemo. She's lung, she can take it. She can take an acid. You know, these guys need to go to jail, sit there for about 10 years and ponder, I shall not hurt my fellow man. You know, this, whoever makes chemotherapy, I'm sorry guys, I'm very passionate about this, they need to go to jail. But the leukemia, keep it going. Lots of fruits, lots of grapes, enrich your blood, clean the liver, clean the spleen, enhance the bone marrow. And I always go after the GI tract. So think about this. You always want to go after your kidneys in herbs. You always want to go after your lymphatic system with herbs. You always want to go after your endocrine glands with herbs. You always want to go after your GI tract with herbs. I call that the Fab Four. They're changing. Let me say the positive side of that. I have a friend who's a medical doctor. He's stuck on high protein and recently had sent me a leukemia case because when he put her on protein, her leukemia skyrocketed. Yeah, and I warned him about high protein in the past. This is the problem we face. You must get off of that protein concept. It is wrong concepts. We're carbon prints. There's no plant, in my opinion, or fruit, or vegetable, or berry that can sustain the acids of chemo. There's just none. Chemo is extreme in the destructive principle of life. Remember, it's got a similar pH as hydrochloric acid. And hydrochloric acid will literally chew up tissue. Now, we humans have a little lighter hydrochloric acid, more around 2, where when you start getting in some of the carnivores, the acid will literally break down bone. Ours isn't that hot, but it is quickly neutralized by bicarbonate, blah, 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 blah. So all I can say is that, yeah, leukemia is not a cancer. They like to lump it there. Leukemia is either your bone marrow breaking down or your spleen breaking down. Leukemia is of the easier side to fix. Unless your bone marrow is broken down, you have low white blood cells, low platelets, you're going to be fighting to get your bone marrow built up in time. But you can, sustained by allopathic blood transfusions and platelet transfusions, you can come out of this. Not difficult. However, when you ingest chemo, you're living in a world far, far away, trying to reach over to Wellville and hoping that you get a little piece of it. Because chemo, there's no coming out of it. And I can't wait till the first oncologists start visiting are prosecuted for this.